Started. Welcome. I'm Candace Breyer, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer citizen board appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the City Council. Our procedure this evening is as follows. First, we will hear from the Planning and Development Services Unit, represented tonight by Mr. John Barrett and Mr. Chris Chang. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will make his or her presentation. Petitioners will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentation. The board members may ask questions of either the city or the petitioner. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will discuss the appeal and formulate a resolution to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Now, roll call. I am here. Mike Daniel.
Here.
Dave DeVarty.
Here.
Mike Dobmeyer. Nicole Eisenman.
Here.
Todd Grant.
Here.
Julie Weatherby.
Here.
Elizabeth Nelson.
Here.
Charlotte Wilson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? From Julie, support?
Support.
From Dave, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the January 23rd, 2019 meeting. Are there any comments or corrections to those minutes? If not, can I get a motion to
I
approve
move
the
we
minutes?
accept the minutes.
I have a motion
Or approve the minutes.
support from Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to public hearings. ZBA 19001, 2750 Pontiac Trail. John?
Actually, Chris is going to
Yeah,
present this
I'm
case.
Chris
right,
Chang with the
Chris.
planning staff. I've been working with the petitioner regarding this project, so I will give the presentation tonight. This is a commercial property investors of Pontiac Trail. They are requesting a variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Section 5.19.2 for parking requirements. The 69-unit, 3-story townhouse development is required to supply 2 parking spaces per unit for a total of 138 parking spaces. The petitioner is proposing to install 94 parking spaces, resulting in a 44 parking space variance. The property is zoned R4A, multiple family. And as you can see from the aerial and from the zoning map, there are 3 parcels. As part of the approval, they will be required to be combined. This site is located on the east side of Pontiac Trail, just south of DuVaron. It is zoned R4A, which is a multifamily residential. There is some R4B and R4A and additional single-family residential to the west, and there's a PUD to the north. Go through. This is the existing site, existing conditions. There is a mid-level woodland on the east side of the site, shaded in the green. There's also a 30-foot storm easement that kind of runs through the rear side of the site. And the orange shaded areas, those are the existing structures that are proposed to be removed. I believe all of them are vacant. Next one. So this is the proposed layout that was approved February 5th by the Planning Commission. There are 69 townhouse units. The blue areas, that is the stormwater detention for this site. There's some green areas, I think in the next slide, that I'll show you where the woodland is. If you want to go back real quick. And so what we've got here is 69 townhouse dwelling units. Each one of them has a garage below the units. They're at grade. They've also proposed 25 surface parking spaces that you can see mostly towards the front of the site, but there are some around the drive, around the perimeter. So they do have 94, which we would legally be able to accept as parking spaces. But there are 34 tandem spaces. In the next slide, when we get there, I'll show you where those are located. And they also have room in each one of the driveways leading to these units for an additional 69 driveway spaces. So it's an additional 103 spaces, but we cannot count them per city code. Step forward. And here you can see the units with the tandem garages. These are the units that each have, so these are, when I say tandem, they have spaces that are one behind the other. We can't count those because one of the cars that's parked in front cannot get out without a roommate or a resident moving a car. So the orange ones depict where the tandem spaces are, and it mostly has to do with the grade on site. There are some steep slopes out there. Again, this one probably looks a little familiar to you. This looks like West Town. I believe it's now called Blue Heron, but that's out on Maple and West Liberty Street. So you're seeing a very similar product with the parking below. That was an 8-unit. This is a 6-unit type of townhouse structure that's being proposed. Here we've got the layout. This is the foundation in that grade. Might be a little difficult for you, but this is where you've got the drive where you can park, and then the tandem spaces, one in front of the other, that we'd like to count as 3 spaces. Here actually is the picture of something that's out at Blue Heron. You can see how it would function. There's parking, single bay garage, but you can also park in front of it. But we would only count one of those spaces as being legal. And you can move forward again.
Slow one.
Okay, it's got a little slow. So while it's moving forward, I will say a little bit of the background on this proposal. The petitioner did come in early on. They could, in fact, probably add this surface parking space on site, but it would impact natural features, whether it be landmark trees, woodland. Adding this impervious surface would then also increase the stormwater detention ponds. So it has a greater impact on the site as far as impacting natural features and stormwater detention. Here it is looking from Pontiac Trail, looking eastbound, one of the structures that is currently vacant. Again, this one's kind of looking east to the south a little bit, a little northeast on the site. Again, if you're looking northeast up on the hill, that's another house. And again, this is the driveway leading to the house. And then you're looking out to the North Sky Development, so now you're looking westbound from the driveway from the main access to this site. That concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Chris. Questions for staff? Todd?
Yeah, Chris, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Todd. So I do have a couple of questions. I do agree that tandem spaces are a little gimpy to count. I mean, asking somebody that's not in your same unit to move or to try to go find their car doesn't really make sense. And my concern about this, though, is that, and my sense is that the city is in favor of the variance. But I'm concerned about the 69 driveway spaces. And I'm also concerned, and one of the other members is too, there's some informal talk before about what do you do for guests? So I know that we've had parking variances come up here before, and the last time was a development near campus, and people were saying, oh, they're just students, they're not going to have a car. But the students are rich now compared to 30 years ago, and most of them have cars. So it might be fine that 2 adults per space, and so there are 2 cars, which is a reasonable allocation, but they want to drop it by about 1/3. And maybe it might be okay for all the normal people occupying the units, but what do you do about guests? What do you do about parties? People aren't going to park on Pontiac Trail. So I'm not in favor of this request. The applicant's going to have to convince me that they're not going to have people parking in the driveway 24 hours a day. I suspect that's probably not cool. And I'm also not really concerned about woodland because we've got Olson Park. So I guess, I'm sorry, that was more about me than a question. My big question is the city really thinking that people are just going to park permanently on the driveway?
So,
That's nuts.
so a couple of a little bit of background on this. It's zoned R4A, which requires 2 spaces per unit. It's the only zoning, multifamily zoning that will require that. If this were across the street, R4B, you're looking at 1.5 spaces as opposed to 2. So it probably skews it a little bit because this is an R4A zoning, which is a larger lot, which is located probably further from the downtown, and hence why they felt when the ordinance was put together that they wanted 2 spaces per unit. I would also go on to state, and I believe Commissioner Weatherby will probably be able to chime in, it's something that I think from Planning Commission and a planning perspective, we would probably like to change code and allow tandem spaces to be counted as 2 spaces. It's something we'll look into, but it's not code at this time. So you are right, there is no parking on Pontiac Trail. There is a bus line on Pontiac Trail. There are surface parking spaces there, but I do expect that as you've seen at Blue Heron, that vehicles would park in front. It may be an inconvenience that you have to move a car if you're going to have 2 cars parked in the garage, but that's the inconvenience due to the residents. But we feel that it's a positive for the city to actually save the woodlands and reduce impervious surface and reduce the stormwater detention on site.
But what about the driveway?
The driveway is, I believe, it meets the legal parking space. It's 10 by 18, something like that, and 9 by 18 is what we would consider a large car parking space. So you could park a vehicle on the driveway.
And that would be okay? There'd be access for fire and all that? It wouldn't be a
Yes.
problem just keeping cars there 24 hours a day?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'm not too concerned about the woodland because Olson Park is nearby. It's just on the other side of Devon, so, okay.
Any other questions for staff? Elizabeth?
I feel like I have to catch up. So the slide where you indicated the yellow units having tandem parking?
Yes.
Is that tandem inside the garage?
Yes. So there's
So-
two, and then
Okay.
one in the garage, and then one in the drive. So those units would have actually access to 3 spaces, but by code, we can only count one of them.
And how many bedrooms are these units?
The bedrooms, I will let the petitioner answer that one with
I was
their turn.
looking
I
in the
don't know how
thing
many
and I
bedrooms
couldn't
are in this
find how many bedrooms were per unit.
So the base configuration of the units is 2 bedrooms. Some of the units come with an optional add-on that you could put a 3rd bedroom or a home office up in the gable or in the walkout level, but they're designed as 2-bedroom homes. So they have a kitchen, living room, and they have a dining room, and then there's 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor. You can, as an option, as a purchaser could extend the stairway up and have a bedroom or a home office in the finished attic space. But they're designed as 2-bedroom units.
Thank you. I have to agree with Mr. Grant that I have a lot of reservations about this, mostly because of the location. Like the project you referenced in your remarks was, it was across the street from a grocery store. That's the only reason that I could rationalize someone functioning without a car. And until we change our parking requirements, like I'm inclined to think no on this. But thank you for answering our questions.
Dave?
This is for the petitioner.
Oh, hold on. Let's wait. We'll let the petitioner
Okay.
give their presentation. We're doing questions for staff.
Okay, sorry.
No worries, Mike.
You just answered my question. So for the units that are highlighted in yellow here, they have 2 spots within the garage and a spot in the driveway, but it's only counted as 1 spot.
That's correct.
Got it. That was my question. I'll wait for debate amongst the group to give my opinion as someone who lives in Blue Heron Pond about this, so.
Dave?
This is for staff. You referenced R4B has a requirement of 1.5 parking spaces. What other differences are there between R4A and R4B?
Just from a parking perspective,
Well, from everything.
it would be lot size, lot width, density. So there are different designations for
Is
each
for,
zoning designation.
R4B is allowed a smaller density or bigger density?
I would have to look it up, but I know that this R4A is 10 units per acre, and they're right it's about a 7-acre site, so I know they're at 10 units per acre. I want to say R4B is 20.
They're 15.
But 15, okay, thank you.
Oh, I actually did have a question. So aside from the, looking at this view, there's a bunch of spots that are kind of in the southwest corner that are like across from the unit that's not yellow. So not that unit, like across from there, it looks like a bunch of outside spots, surface spots.
Yeah.
Those are not tied to specific units. Those are anyone can park there?
No, that would be for visitor parking.
Right. And then, is there anywhere else in this development, though, that you could park that's not in a driveway or a garage, except for those spots?
There's some spaces, yeah, to the north and to the south, but you're looking at 4 or 5 and another 4 or 5.
But not like parking on a street anywhere or?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? All right, the petitioner could please step forward, state your name for the record, sign in. You'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Scott Betzold. I'm with Midwestern Consulting. We're a civil engineering consultant on this project. With me tonight is Brad Moore. He was the architect of the project, and David Derekowski representing the petitioner. Just a real quick summary. Numbers. I'm a numbers guy. There are 138 spaces that are required by code of this project. We have provided 94 that are recognized by code. We've provided 103 additional usable spaces that are no different than
then the spaces actually across the street in the R4B district, their driveways are 20 feet long, our driveways are 20 feet long. They're going to park their cars in their driveways, just like these people are going to park their cars in their driveways sometime. So we're providing 197 usable spaces on this project, when 138 are required. So that goes to the question of what about guest parking? Well, you're going to have more guest parking the more spaces you can provide within these units and in front of these units. People treat the driveways in front of a unit like this just like a driveway in front of a single-family dwelling. We've designed houses that are 20 feet from the garage door to the sidewalk day in and day out these days, and that's exactly what this is. So they will function no differently than the houses that Pulte is building across the street. I think there was confusion maybe with Commissioner Grant about, you mentioned parking in front of someone and like when you don't have control. These are all parked in front of the same unit. It's common ownership. So it's going to be your wife or your kid or something, or your girlfriend or whoever. So it's not someone you don't know. So that becomes problematic. I totally agree. Guest spaces, as I said, and the more we can provide in front of the units, in the units, the more guest spaces that we get. I think, when we looked at this, we initially provided a design that actually had all of the spaces that are required by code, and it stretched into the entire easterly portion of the site. Staff recommended compressing the project and preserving the natural features. Although not high-quality natural features, they are natural features. It's woodland. And so we've done that, and we've provided what we think is actually an adequate parking scenario and preserved the natural features. This project, all said and done, reduces the impervious sprawl that could be on this particular project. It reduces stormwater runoff, and it preserves the natural features. So I think this is actually a win-win situation when you think about practically how this will work while people will park their cars. Brad, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that these are condominiums, they're for-sale units, and they are a form of single-family housing. They're not multifamily. Under the Michigan law, freestanding duplex and townhouses are all a form of single-family housing. So each each dwelling will have both the interior and exterior parking. So as a resident, you can choose to park your car inside, or you can choose to leave it in the driveway. If you have guests coming over, they could park in the driveway, you could park inside. But the surface spaces you see around the site were intended for guest parking, that we believe the residents will park on their own property. It's a condominium form of ownership, so no one else has the right to park in your driveway. So that's exclusively yours.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner, Dave?
Are there basements in these units?
Some of the units have partial basements. Not all of them have basements. Some are slab on grade. It just depends on the contours. Where the homes were built into a slope and the topography afforded a walkout basement in part, we did take advantage of that situation. And that's, in that case, that would be one of the spaces where you could elect to have that walkout basement level finished as a family room, or you could have it finished out as an office, or you could actually have it finished out as a bedroom down there.
Well, I'll make my point. My concern, I have a 1.5 car garage. It's totally filled up. I've lived there for 20 years, and so I can't park in the garage. I would posit that most families that are living in these would at least use half of that space, or half of that stacked space for storage. And many of them would probably potentially use both spaces. I mean, there's all sorts of things. Lawnmower, I guess lawnmowers you're gonna not have to be, but I've got bicycles, lawnmowers, tools, all sorts of things stored in my garage, and I can't park a car in it. And I would say probably these ones that you're arguing are stacked spaces, so you can really get 2 cars in there, when in practicality, you're gonna see the situation where most of these families are gonna be using half of that space, at least half of that space for storage.
It's possible they certainly, it'd be up to them, but I don't believe they'll have the ability to take up the guest parking So it'd be their choice. If they want to live with one car and pack the garage, they can do that, but they're not going to be allowed to park permanently in the guest parking.
Well, I'm arguing this because of the number of spaces that you're required to provide, and you're trying to argue that, oh, we're really providing that, it's just, they're secret spaces because they're stacked. So I would say that's not true.
Again, it's going to be up to the individual purchaser how they use the space.
So, as someone who lives in Blue Heron, I have one of the units that has the garage that fits 2 cars. For these units here that would fit 2 cars in the garage, how do those compare to like the units in Blue Heron? Because I know for my unit, I can fit 2 cars and plenty of other stuff in there. They're actually really deep. But I just don't know how, like, you know, the picture here, you're showing Blue Heron as a comp, so are they going to be?
It's exactly the same plan.
Yeah, right. So I can attest, I fit a SUV, a normal car, and have plenty of room to store other stuff in my unit for those units that can fit 2 cars. But the other question I had, though, is are there going to be any restrictions on that guest parking, right? At Blue Heron, spots during the day are reserved for the model unit, showing houses, you know, showing other future units for sale. Are they just completely no permit, people can leave whatever car there for as long as they want, or are there going to be any restrictions on that?
It's my understanding that, you know, once the sales are completed, obviously they won't need that space for the models. Mr. Darkowski could testify to the fact that once that period ends, that's guest parking only. It's not supposed to be for residents, but.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, temporarily, yes, we're using that as a parking area for the sales model because you can only fit 1 car in the driveway when the office to the model is actually in the garage. So, but once that goes away, yes, it's temporary parking. I know we've had some problems at Blue Heron, but we've stickered and ticketed and actually have towed some vehicles as well for parking in those areas for longer than they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference.
That's the condominium association that's done that.
Yeah.
It's not the associate. It's
Right.
not Norfolk.
I mean, there's a lot more guest spots in this development than there are in Blue Heron, but I'd also say that this is a more, less central development to the downtown than
Right.
Blue Heron too. So
Right, it's on the
Blue Heron's
outskirts.
a little easier to get to than this without a car, I would
Sure,
say.
absolutely, yeah.
Although both are on the bus route.
Both are on the bus route.
Yeah.
Todd?
Would one of you, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your last names, I apologize, but I think I have your first names down, Brad, right?
Brad Moore.
Brad, yeah, thank you. I may have missed it before, but could you point out on the diagram we had earlier where the 69 driveway spaces are?
I don't have the mouse. Have you got
Or
a way?
maybe,
Do you want to drive or do you want me to drive, Brad?
You can drive.
Okay.
You know where they
So you
are.
can see all the,
So-
where the drives are leading into, where you see the driveway spaces.
Yeah.
Those are all, will be able to accommodate a vehicle going into the front of the garage.
Okay.
So
So
they're
where I'm
always-
pointing at is all of the,
So they're always, they lead
drives.
to the garage and they're always perpendicular from the road.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm.
And then the guest parking, if you just move your cursor up a little bit, Chris, there's some parallel
There's
spots right there.
here.
And there's also
Here.
parallel spots there, and then the others are perpendicular guest spots. right there.
And I'm sorry, I
there's a
still
couple
have,
hidden right in here also.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chang, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I still have one other question.
Sure.
Your proposal indicates that if you don't get the variance, the result could be the removal of woodlands. Have you decided, if you don't get the variance, that you have to remove what you admit isn't great green stuff? Or are you not clear at this point?
That's the only place we could put the additional parking. I don't know if you can point to it, Chris, but it's in the lower right-hand quadrant of that, yeah, right there.
It had originally come in this area with the surface parking, but yes, our natural features reviewer would prefer that they do not disturb the woodlands, so.
Understood.
And I understand there may be woodlands elsewhere, but the city values the woodlands wherever they occur because they tend to do things like filter air and filter water and offer habitat. So they view them as valuable every site that they're on.
Additional questions for the commissioner? Elizabeth?
I think staff mentioned something about the impact on stormwater retention if you had to build more parking. I mean, in addition to the impact on the woodlands, but how much more allowances would you have to do
I'll
for
let the civil
stormwater
engineer
retention?
take that question.
Well, I mean, it's hard to quantify exactly how much bigger the pond would have to be, but we'd have to create almost the equivalent of all those driveways that in front of every unit would have to be displaced somewhere else on the site, then including the aisle to get to them. So, I mean, the ponds would probably grow 25 to 33%, which will require additional woodland removal as well. So,
Thank you.
Mike?
Just one last question. So let's say someone who doesn't live here, who doesn't have access to the driveway or the garage spots comes, and all the guest spots are filled. Where, in your opinion, you think they would go park?
well, I don't know. They'd probably, if it was me and my friends, they'd probably contact the people that they're going to visit, see if they can rearrange their cars, see if they're in the right spots. But, I mean,
Some of these people might have more than one or two friends that they want to have over
right.
at a time.
But at the end of the day, what we're showing is we're providing 197 spaces when 138 are required by code. We have actually 197 total spaces. So,
Right, but the surrounding area isn't exactly a plum with
Right.
places to park, right?
so at Blue Heron, do you guys ever ask your neighbor, hey, I'm having people over, can someone park in front of your garage?
You know, we have people park in the parking lot for the city tennis courts across the street, or we have them, you know, we figure it out, but
Yeah.
it is annoying, I will say that. But I also think there are more spots here than at Blue Heron, so
Right.
that's to be fair.
Yeah. I
I was just asking, you know, I
Yeah,
didn't,
there isn't a public lot nearby. I mean, the closest place, honestly, they could go would be up to the park and then walk down from
Yeah.
there. Which there is like sidewalks linking the park here.
yeah.
So, yeah, Super Bowls, maybe.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything comes at a cost. I mean, anybody visit the movie theater over on Carpenter Road and Ellsworth and ever see it fully parked? Anybody ever see the parking lot at Target ever fully parked, other than just in front of Target? I mean, you can have like catastrophic parking provided, but we don't design 8-lane roads to come in and out of Ann Arbor for game days either. So, I mean, everything comes at a consequence, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, is there anyone here from the public to speak on this petition? I will note we did not receive any communication, so seeing no one, we're in discussion. Dave?
I'm generally, I've seen time and again where we give these parking variances, and some people theorize, well, people are going to be using bikes and Ubers and everything. I'm generally against parking variances because I view these parking spaces as an addition, placing an additional burden on the community. In the case of my esteemed colleague to my right, their visitors can park at the tennis courts nearby. I'm not in favor of this. I think a lot of that space is going to be used for storage. I see the possibility, reduce your complex by 6 units and put parking in place of the 6 units. And then you probably, I could look at that map and try to see to the pants it myself as, and figure out a way that you can reduce the demand or the required number of the parking at the same time you provide the space for the parking. And I just think you're overloading the site. So I'm going to have to vote against this.
Julie?
So we did talk about this at length at the Planning Commission meeting. Tandem parking is a really normal thing in Ann Arbor. My neighborhood is full of tandem parking. It's how many people park, and it definitely struck the Planning Commission as odd that those spots would not be legal parking spots. And we are looking at, we have forwarded to staff the recommendation or the request to look into actually having tandem parking spots be legal parking spots, because it is a norm in the city, and we would like to see that reflected. I think the fact that this actually provides more parking than they need and reduces impervious surface, saves the woodland. You know, we are building in areas that were wetlands or are wetlands and do have trees, and to minimize paving that, I think is in our best interest, and we want to minimize that as much as possible. This one, to me, is a real win-win situation. We actually have more parking, but reduce the impervious surface, reduce the damage to the woodlands. I think it's a really good proposal, and I'm going to support it. It is not actually reducing the parking. There's actually increased parking here in a very normal parking situation. It's not like people have to park a mile away and that's what they're considering their parking. It's just parking on their own, in their own condo, in their own space. So I am going to approve it or vote yes on this.
Sorry, I totally ignored. Charlotte?
I would like to echo those statements as well, and I also believe that this is meeting the intent of the ordinance, so I will be voting yes.
Mike?
Yeah, as someone who lives in Blue Heron and very much enjoys living in Blue Heron, there are times during the year where it's frustrating there aren't more guest spots, but people who live there make it work. If you asked me how many spots I thought I legally had, I would have told you 3, not 1. I had the 2 in my garage and the 1 in the driveway, and there's plenty of room for 3 cars and to store things. So these units either have 2 or 3, in my opinion, and just tandem to me should be counted as multiple spots. So the fact that this has significantly more guest spots than Blue Heron, plus how the city counts the tandem spots, I'm gonna vote for it.
Nicole?
Well, I'm a little bit on the fence from what maybe my initial comment would have indicated, but I'm left with a sense that, to use, I think, maybe an old science term, a type 1 or a type 2 error, if you have too few parking spaces, people are just stuck. If you have too many, that's a cost you incur right off the bat. It's sunk, it's gone, and there's always enough parking. So I understand the woodland thing, and normally I would agree, but the applicant admitted these aren't, I don't know whether they're arborvitae or, thorn bushes, but Olson Park is nearby. It's just off the picture. This is a nice space. It has a nice, cool little local mountain bike trail. People take their dogs out there. This is easily accessible to these folks. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to vote, so I will think about this a little more. But I think in my mind, if you make a mistake, wouldn't you want to err on having too many spaces for a high school graduation party or some other things going on? If you got too few, there isn't a parking garage downtown you can slop over to. You're just out of luck.
Okay. Nicole?
Yeah.
I also agree with Julie and Mike's statements. I think this is a really smart way of parking, and unlike some other parking variances that have been granted, I don't feel like this will actually present a burden of parking in other neighborhoods. There won't be people searching and parking elsewhere because they can't find a spot for their own home. They'll have 3 spots to choose from. And so this is more of the conversation's been more about guest parking, which can be accommodated elsewhere, or you can hold your event somewhere else or figure out some other way to manage it. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
And Charlotte?
I just have one comment. Todd,
Please.
I just wanted to engage you. I think the variance is to look at if the driveway spot and the tandem spot are, could be counted as additional parking spaces. Not that, they technically, if you do count those, would be over the amount that would be, permitted, principally permitted, and they wouldn't even be here. So I guess I would look towards that point of view, not necessarily talking about the woodlands and getting rid of those to put more surface parking on.
Good point.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. Thank you.
Any further discussion, or are we ready for a motion? Mike?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
So this is petition ZBA 19-001, 2750 Pontiac Trail. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code, Section 5.19.2, parking requirements. Variance of 44 parking spaces to allow the construction of 69-unit, 3-story townhome development. The site plan project is to be built per the submitted plans. A, the alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, that the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance, if granted, will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
Do I have support?
Support.
Support from Dave. I vote yes. Mike Daniel?
Yes.
Dave?
No.
Nicole?
Yes.
Todd?
Great, you would have to pick me now. I will vote yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
No.
Charlotte?
Yes.
The request is granted. Moving on to petition ZBA 19-002, 1619 South University. John?
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Darren Coomer, Representative Administrative Holdings 3 LLC, is requesting a variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Table 5:17-2, two-family residential zoning district dimensions. The petitioners are seeking to convert an existing 9-bedroom, single-family home into a 2-unit duplex consisting of a 3-bedroom unit and a 6-bedroom unit. The property is currently zoned R2B, two-family, that requires a minimum lot width of 60 feet. The subject property is 50 feet in width, resulting in the request for a 10-foot variance. The petitioner will be reducing the number of occupants from 10 down to 9. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, you'll see that the property, the location map, the property is highlighted in yellow. It's just north of South University, south of Getty's, and west of Oxford. The next slide, you see the aerial map showing surrounding conditions and the existing neighborhoods. The next slide is the zoomed aerial photo. You see the existing single-family 10-bedroom unit, or 9-bedroom unit with 10 occupants. The property currently meets all requirements for the R2B district as far as lot size is concerned, setbacks. It just doesn't meet the lot width requirement. This is the survey that was submitted with the application. These are the proposed floor plans, layout, and the layout of the second, this unit number 2. You see it has 3 bedrooms here, and then we'll have another 3 bedrooms. That's on the second floor, and then the third floor, or the attic space, will have an additional 3 bedrooms. For unit 2, we'll have a total of 6 bedrooms. And that's just the same, the second floor and the attic. And then the unit 1 on the first floor will have 3 bedrooms, and then there's the basement. So 2 units, 9 total bedrooms. These are the photos I took, or these were submitted with the application. And these are the photos that I took when I was out at my inspection for the site. You see the existing home in its current state. This is looking down the driveway towards the rear, and also you see the abutting property. This is the rear of the property, the parking lot for the tenants. This is looking directly back towards the back of the home. adjacent property to the east, and adjacent properties to the west. And this is the property directly across the street on the south side of South University. That concludes my report. I'll take questions at this time.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Questions for staff?
And
Todd?
You've looked, just to confirm, the report indicated there are no external changes to the envelope of the building.
Correct.
Okay.
Everything will be internal. It's basically just creating a second unit in the home.
Any other questions for staff? Dave?
So is it, because they're doing a second unit, they need a variance?
They need to meet the lot requirements for the R2B district, and that's one of the requirements is the 60-foot lot width, which is, it's only 50 now. But they meet the lot size, you need 8,500 square feet. They're at 9,016. The structure meets the setbacks for the district.
Right.
It meets everything except that lot width.
But as a single family, right now it's a single family.
That's correct. It's zoned R2B, though, two-family. But in order to be a two-family unit, it has to meet all the requirements of the district for the lot.
Gotcha.
Elizabeth?
I just had a quick question. Were you the one that put together the history, or was that the petitioner?
The staff report, I did.
I like the attachments, I was just reading
Oh,
the attachments to the history. of the
No, that was
property.
probably the petitioner. Are you talking about all the exhibits?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that was the petitioner's
Oh,
application.
okay, yeah, all right, thanks.
All right, if the petitioner's here, if you could please state your name for the record, sign in, you'll have 5 minutes.
Hello, Darren Coomer, representing this. Another thing that wasn't touched on is that we just had to put up walls at the opening. It already has 2 kitchens, 1 on each floor, on both first floor, second floor. Bedrooms on the first floor, bedrooms on the second floor, bathrooms on each floor. So it was initially designed for 2 units when it was originally built in the early 1900s. So minimal changes inside and no changes outside.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the petitioner? Nicole?
Where's the entrance for the upper unit?
So when you walk in, you'll be able to go straight or you'll turn right to go to the stairs.
So the 2 units share an entry?
Correct. Yep. So the inside doors will then be keyed differently than the outside.
Is it that side door?
The side doors to the basement where laundry is.
This is that main entrance?
I'm sorry. Can I
Oh,
come closer?
he's got it up here.
Okay.
So on the top so that top plan where those 2 doors are kind of overlapping, that's the main entrance? Nope, the other one by the stairs.
This one right here?
That's to the basement.
That's to the basement.
That's the basement,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still, a little confused, but, okay. Thanks.
Any other, Dave?
Just a quick question. How many parking spaces are there now?
6 for 10 people. And again, we're dropping down to 9.
Parking. Don't start it.
It's 3 per unit.
Parking spaces.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here from the public to speak on this petition? I'll note we did not receive any communication on this in our packet. And with that said, we are in discussion. Todd?
This is an easy one. They're not making any changes to the outside of the building. I'll vote yes.
So we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Petition ZBA 19-002, 1619 South University. Variance. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code, Table 5:17-2, 2-family residential zoning district dimensions. A variance of 10 feet to allow the conversion of an existing 9-bedroom, single-family unit into a 2-unit duplex consisting of a 3-bedroom unit and a 6-bedroom unit. The construction is to be built per the submitted plans. The alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, that the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance if granted will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
We have support? Support from Nicole. Todd?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mike Daniel?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
The request is approved. Moving on to ZBA 19003, 2000 Anderson Court. John?
All right, the next petition, ZBA 19-003, 2000 Anderson Court. Carmel Gerber, property owner, is requesting a variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Section 5.18-.15, averaging an established front building line, and Table 5:17-1, single-family residential zoning district dimensions. The petitioner is seeking to construct a new front porch and dormers that will require a 12-foot, 10-inch variance and to connect the existing detached garage to the residence, which results in a 2-inch variance. The proposed new porch will be 6 feet in depth and 41 feet, 2 inches in length across the front of the facade of the home. The new dormer will be installed, and there's an edit on this description, in the same footprint of the house, and that's not above the porch, and will be an expansion of the second floor that contains 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The connector from the main home and the detached garage will consist of a hallway, closet, and stairs leading to the first floor of the home. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, you'll see the location map, and you see the highlighted pie-shaped parcel right here, Anderson Court. And this is the aerial map showing the existing conditions surrounding neighborhoods. And this is the zoomed-in aerial photo of the subject property. This is the survey that was submitted with the application. Currently has an old, somewhat dilapidated front porch that will be removed, and there'll be a front porch proposed to be across the front of the house. And then the connection with the garage to the home. The garage is currently 4 feet 10 inches off that side property line, and once it is connected, you'll have to, they're required to have 5 feet from the side property line, resulting in that 2-inch variance. This is the site plan that was submitted with the application. You can see the proposed porch on the front of the home, and then this connector between the home and the garage. This is a elevation that was submitted. This is looking directly at the home. The south side elevation, you see it is the existing. And this is the proposed, how the home will look with the new front porch and the dormers above, and then the connection between the garage and the home. This is looking east, the existing elevation of the home, and you see the existing porch. And then the next slide is with the proposed porch and the dormer. These are the existing floor plans, existing first floor plan right now. And then the proposed, you see the garage with the connector, stairs going into the first floor, and then the porch right here in the front of the house. And the existing second floor, and then with the new proposed second floor, the dormer will create this new area right here where it's all shaded. These are the photos that I took when I was at made my inspection of the site. It's the front of the house. You see the survey marker, and in relationship to the adjacent property and the home or the garage where it's going to be connected into the existing home. And just a different viewpoint of the two structures as they relate to one another. This is the existing front porch. And this is looking down into the backyard. Somewhat of a sloping topography. It was tough to get back there, so. And this is the property directly to the east. Property directly to the west. That concludes my presentation at this time. I'll take questions now.
Thanks, John. Questions for staff? Dave?
Two things. The front porch isn't currently covered with a roof, correct? Or so it's really a stoop?
Correct.
Okay. What's in the single-family residential zoning district, if you don't use averaging, what's the current zoning setback requirement?
Let's see. The home is currently zoned R1C, and it would be 25 feet.
25 feet, okay.
But if you look at the site plan sketch of the survey as well, you can see how the properties directly to the east and west,
Yes, I see that.
especially the one to the east, it's 39.79 feet. It really skews the average because the home existing currently is only 27 feet.
Right, right.
So it's significantly how it sits now. So any improvement that they make, they're going to need a variance because they don't meet that average right now.
Okay.
Elizabeth?
The pictures that you showed tonight were clearer to me in terms of understanding the surrounding houses. From the aerial photo, it looked like the houses next door. Does it look like the houses next door were previously smaller and were added onto? I mean, I'm trying to figure out if this addition is sort of the same as what has happened in the cul-de-sac years earlier to the other houses. Maybe that's not relevant, I'm just curious.
No, I would say that there's probably been a lot of additions and a lot of improvements over the years to some of these homes. I think this neighborhood is just directly off east of Packard. There were some smaller ranches and bungalows, and there's probably been a lot of additions. It's a little difficult to see because of the aerial, but this home probably sits right in here where my cursor is. And you can see how significantly far closer to the front property line it is compared to the adjacent properties, which really pull that average back for these people.
Dave?
So the second floor dormer that they're proposing is going to be even with the existing structure?
Correct.
So really, the new incursion closer to the front property line is all front porch
That's correct.
with a roof on the porch?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any additional questions for staff? Okay, the petitioner's here. If you could please step forward, state your name for the record, and sign in. You'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Carmel Gerber. Just to give you a little history on the house, it's a really nice neighborhood, and unfortunately this house was really neglected. The person was a hoarder, and it was just completely neglected, and it kind of dragged down the whole cul-de-sac. And when I first bought the place and we took out all this, you couldn't even see the house because it was just overgrown with everything. And the neighbors were coming and saying, thank you for finally clearing it out, and you've really improved the cul-de-sac. So there are kind of 4 parts to this. So first of all, we wanted to connect the house to the garage. The garage is, because it's on a hill, the garage is like a little bit lower than the house, and so to access the house, you have to go upstairs, and it's just very awkward, and the existing stairs are concrete, and they're all cracked. So as was mentioned, one corner, it's a pie-shaped lot. One corner of the garage is 2 inches into the setback. So we're asking for a variance of 2 inches. As for the dormer, it's going to stay in the same footprint of the house. It does not affect the view shed of the neighbors. And it just provides needed headroom on the second floor. Then the last thing is just improving the front porch, because that's the main access to the house. And as you can see from the other things, the house is kind of in the center of the cul-de-sac. So anyone coming to visit the other houses, like this is like the focal point of what they see. Right now it's cracked concrete, cracked brick, and then unfinished 2x4s. And I really want to just improve the whole look of the house, and it's going to affect all the neighbors and just improve everything by extending it across the house. And then also, I know it said that we're asking for a variance of 12 feet 10 inches, but the house, when it was built, was before the setback was put in place. The house itself is in the setback, and this stoop or porch is already in the setback. So what I'm asking for is an additional 6 inches in depth, and then just to extend it along the front of the house. So that's about it.
Thank you. Questions
Thanks.
for the petitioner, Dave?
I've got a quick
We have
question.
questions. Yes, sorry.
With the porch, how close will the front edge of the porch be to the front property line? Do you know that?
I'm not sure.
I think I can probably answer that.
Okay.
So it's currently 27.41 feet, and I believe the depth of the porch is going to be 6 feet, so it would take it down to 21.41.
But we're just asking for an extra
Right, I
6
understand.
inches.
Yep.
I mean, what's there is, I mean, unfortunately, it was built in the setback. I didn't realize when I purchased it.
Well, the averaging thing throws the whole thing off, the averaging with the neighbors.
Right.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this petition? If so, come forward now. I will note again, we did not receive any communication on this, so we are in discussion. Dave?
Those of you who have been here for the last couple of years know my proclivity to favor front porches. I think they add a lot to the neighborhood. In this case, even though it's a 12-foot, 10-inch variance that they're requesting, the actual incursion of the porch, which is really the new incursion forward, is in reality of less than 4 feet into what would be a natural setback if it weren't for the averaging, because the normal setback for this R
25 feet.
is 25 feet, and this would still be well set back from the property line. To me, this is an easy one. I think it's another step forward for your neighbors on the court, and I think they'll be really happy with it if we approve the variance.
Any other discussion, Todd?
Yes, I agree with Dave. I think the other way I was looking at it, they're only adding a few inches here and there, whether it's 2 and 7 or 2 and 6. And it is a well-thought-out project. It's already into the setback. The change into the setback requirements is minimal. This is an easy one for me. I will vote yes.
Any further discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Dave.
Petition ZBA 19-003, 2000 Anderson Court. Variance. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code, Section 5.18.5, averaging an existing setback in Table 5:17-1, single-family residential zoning district dimensions. A variance of 12 feet 10 inches to allow construction of a new front porch and dormers, and a 2-inch variance to connect the existing detached garage to the residence. The construction is to be built per the submitted plans. A, the alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, that the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance, if granted, will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
Do you have support? Support from Charlotte? Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mike Daniel?
Yes.
The request is granted. Moving on, we have addressed, we have no unfinished business, no additional new business, no reports and communications. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion from Elizabeth, support from
Support.
Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everyone.